So Joe Biden delivered some comments on his Build Back Better plan, and during it, he said the following, quote, "I'm a union president. Someone calculated I used the word union more than the last 7 presidents combined." Okay, so I hear that, and what's my reaction? Good, but do you have the policy chops to back it up? So in other words, what are you pushing for substantively to back unions? Now, the answer is the PRO Act was proposed, but it ain't going to pass unless you do it through reconciliation. Parts of it were in the Build Back Better bill, but it got stripped. Like all the PRO Act provisions, either most or all of them, I think all of them, but don't quote me on that. It might be most of them. It's been stripped. And now the PRO Act would be phenomenal for unions. I think it's fair to say that if we got the PRO Act passed, that would be better for workers than even a living wage, because that really shifts the balance of power, basically bans right-to-work laws among a number of other things, makes it way easier to form a union, and in the long run, that has more upsides for the working class than even the living wage. So it was proposed, but it was stripped out, and Biden hasn't fought for it. So what does he lean on? Well, I said the word union a lot. Okay, Joe. Well, great work here from More Perfect Union. You're going to see Jonah Furman, who's a labor reporter, breaking down the history of pro-union presidents. So Biden thinks that he's the most pro-union president. Nonsense. You're going to see what actual pro-union presidents have done, and then we'll come back and tell you exactly what Biden can do. Now, by the way, quick side note, this guy Jonah Furman, who's in this video on More Perfect Union, check out the last episode of Crystal Kyle and Friends, because we interviewed him about the John Deere strike, which is currently happening right now. It's a phenomenally informative interview. And then you also have all like the wave of strikes, all the other strikes. We sort of comment on a variety of them. So definitely check that out. It's very informative, very substantive. And, it's important to have the more substantive of the interviews do well and not just, the more spicy and non-substantive ones. So anyway, take a look at that, Crystal Kyle and Friends. You could subscribe on Substack for free and get the audio version. You can subscribe for $5 and get the video version. Or you could just go to whatever your favorite podcast platform is and pull up the latest Crystal Kyle and Friends episode. Anyway, here's the breakdown of pro-union presidents and where Biden falls.
President Biden is eager to be the most pro-union president in American history.
You've heard me say many times, I intend to be the most pro-union president, leading the most pro-union administration in American history.
Here's one important way that the president can show up for labor: by getting involved in labor strikes on the side of workers. In recent history, presidents have refused to speak out in favor of workers who are engaged in an ongoing labor dispute.
The president, as I think you just heard from me, has not expressed any opinion or made any assessment about this particular incident.
The Biden White House has continued this modern practice of abstention.
As a policy and for legal reasons, we don't weigh in on individual labor disputes.
I'm not getting into the negotiation, but my message is, if you think that's what you need, then you should do it.
To be fair, workers should be leading the way on letting the company know what they need for a fair deal. When negotiations break down, however, and workers are out on the picket line against corporate greed, it's in the public interest for the administration to ensure a work stoppage is addressed in a way that respects working people. If Biden wants to become the most pro-union president in American history, he needs to change the norms and retain the option to get involved if he so chooses, especially when workers are on a prolonged strike. Coal miners at Alabama's Warrior Met Coal and nurses at Massachusetts' St. Vincent Hospital have been on strike for hundreds of days. Going on strike for that long is an enormous sacrifice by workers. And the longer a labor dispute drags out, the more it favors deep-pocketed corporations. As workers go without paychecks, corporations can hire scabs to replace striking workers, shift jobs to other factories, or close down entirely. But the Biden administration has yet to express public support for the striking Warrior Met or St. Vincent workers. With each passing day, it gets harder and harder for the striking workers to extract a fair deal. Even a statement from the labor secretary would mean a great deal. Franklin Roosevelt is widely considered to be the most pro-union president in American history. If Biden wants to claim the mantle, FDR provides a good model to emulate. FDR and his labor secretary, Francis Perkins, got personally involved in the sit-down strikes of 1937 by encouraging the president of General Motors to recognize the United Auto Workers Union. In one particular historic exchange, Secretary Perkins chided the chairman of General Motors for reneging on a promise to meet with striking workers. "You are a scoundrel and a skunk," she said to him. "You can't talk to me like that," the chairman of GM responded. "I'm worth $70 million. With Roosevelt's backing, the workers won and unlocked important gains that led to the growth of America's middle class.
I have spent most of my adult life in the service of the people of my country, working to improve their living and laboring standards."
And FDR's was not the only administration to have intervened in a labor dispute on behalf of working people. In 1962, JFK got involved in the negotiations between the steelworkers and U.S. Steel, urging the company to raise wages for workers without increasing prices for consumers. He called the leaders of the union and the company to the Oval Office to broker a deal. When the company reneged on what they negotiated, he came down hard.
The American people will find it hard, as I do, to accept a situation in which a tiny handful of steel executives, whose pursuit of private power and profit exceeds their sense of public responsibility, can show such utter contempt for the interests of 185 million Americans.
Republican presidents since Ronald Reagan have used the power of the government to get involved in labor disputes on behalf of corporate power, not workers.
They are in violation of the law, and if they do not report for work within 48 hours, they have forfeited their jobs and will be terminated.
Too often, Democratic presidents have taken a stance of neutrality, but President Biden has the opportunity to level the playing field. The Biden administration should threaten to get involved to sort out labor disputes that it finds particularly reprehensible. It's in the national interest to show everyone involved that our government will act as a counterweight to egregious corporate power in labor conflicts.
So let me put this in perspective for you. Right now, 232 days, St. Vincent nurses have been on strike. 208 days, the Warrior Met workers have been on strike. We've covered that in detail on this show. 21 days, Kellogg's workers are on strike. 12 days, the John Deere workers are on strike. There's also a long list of workers who are about to strike. Joe Biden and his administration have a policy: we don't weigh in on specific disputes. Then don't tell me you're the most pro-labor president in U.S. history, or even a pro-labor president. So let me tell you something. As was detailed, did Ronald Reagan have the position, yeah, I'm anti-union, but I'm not going to get involved in any specific disputes? Not at all. He was on the side of management across the board. FDR was on the side of workers. And you saw the history of it there. Credit to Jonah Furman. Again, he does a wonderful job. Everybody should follow him on Twitter and follow Labor Notes, where he follows this stuff in detail. The fact of the matter is, now this is not them speaking, this is me speaking. The fact of the matter is, the Republican Party is on the side of management, and they take money from all the major special interests. But the Democratic Party is on the side of management too. And they take more money from the management side and the ownership side than they do from unions. And so a lot of the support of unions is simply performative. If the president got involved on the side of workers, it could make a colossal difference. And I fear he's not going to do that, because he probably views it as he has a responsibility as the president. And since he took money from both the unions and the management side and the ownership side, he probably views it as like, hey, you guys fight it out. I'll say a couple flowery words about how I wish we could all get along and I like unions, and then wash my hands of it and I'm done. It really is a dirty trick, and it really highlights the main problem in our system, which is the corruption, which is the legalized bribery. If Joe Biden wasn't taking money from the side of management and from the big businesses, maybe he would be inclined to jump in on the side of the workers. But we don't live in that world. We live in a world where he's swimming in corporate cash. So it just goes to show you how hollowed out the Democratic Party is now, and how FDR, LBJ, even JFK, they're rolling over in their graves watching what's going on. I wouldn't hold my breath for Biden getting involved in these labor disputes, but he absolutely should get involved. He should get involved on the side of the workers, and that would make a huge difference. Credit to More Perfect Union for that phenomenal video. Credit to Jonah Furman. Solidarity with all the striking workers. And don't stop. Don't stop. As I said in Crystal Kyle and Friends, nobody's coming to save us. We have to save ourselves. And the best way to do that is to go hard in a pro-union direction. Create more unions, even though it's difficult. Stand by unions. Never cross a picket line. Really look down upon these scabs. So I hope that there's some, some resolution which the workers are okay with. If you want to see me and Crystal Ball interview legends like Noam Chomsky, Cornel West, and more, subscribe to Crystal Kyle and Friends on Substack. $5 a month gets you the video version a day early. Remember, we take 0 ad dollars for this podcast. Or you can sign up on Substack for free and get the audio version a day later. Link in the video description box below.